Eat more peanut butter. There is so much science behind eating peanut butter for health and well-being. Without a doubt, it's really good for you, and for kids, it's a superfood. Let me show you some of the reasons. Despite the fact that there are doomsdayers and naysayers out there who say, oh, it's got this in it, it's got that in it, let me explain in detail. First of all, it's rich in all of these nutrients, and the first one is vitamin E. Vitamin E is a fat-soluble vitamin, and it's linked very closely with heart and cardiovascular health. Great suggestion, huh? Then you've got the B vitamins, B3 and B6. It's got other B vitamins in, but these two are the highest. And B3 is thiamine, and B6, they're great for the nervous system and metabolism. Then you've got magnesium, iron, and selenium. Magnesium, if you're short in magnesium, you probably have cramps. So if you've got cramps, have more magnesium, have more peanut butter, and lots of other things with magnesium in too. Iron, great. Selenium is known as the anti-cancer mineral. And so it's a pretty good reason to start consuming more peanut butter. In terms of protein, it's rich in protein, so it's a great source of very usable protein for humans. Absolutely very usable. And two of the main amino acids, so these are the building blocks of protein. The first one is arginine, and arginine is renowned for its effect on relaxing the arteries in the muscle. I've spoken extensively on that on the video I have on hypertension, reversing hypertension. So arginine plays a really important role in that, relaxing the heart, relaxing the arteries going around the muscles, around the blood, carrying everything around and so on. Absolutely brilliant. Then you've got L-tryptophan, and that is the building block of serotonin and melatonin. Serotonin is the feel-good neurotransmitter. Melatonin is the sleep neurotransmitter. And when it gets into the gut, it's converted into melatonin and serotonin, which are the main messengers in the gut for getting all the gut up and running and functioning. So great opportunity here. Then you've got your fats. The main fat in all modern day, or at least in all Western modern day peanut butters, is a monounsaturated called oleic acid. Now that's the same one that you've been told to eat because it's in olive oil. Remember, everyone tells you, I tell you, extra virgin olive oil. It has lots of oleic acid in it. Absolutely fantastic. And peanut butter is incredibly rich in it. Then you've got these antioxidants and anti-inflammatory nutrients. Ones like resveratrol. Resveratrol is the renowned one in red wine, but in red wine you don't get enough of it. In peanut butter you do. And then you've got quercetin. By the way, these are all reduce the risk of cardiovascular diseases, cancers, help general overall well-being and functioning of the body. Quercetin, a really potent antioxidant, anti-inflammatory, often found in onions and apples and so on, and you can get it in peanut butter too. And these are the phytosterols, which help rebalance the nasty fats, the triglycerides in your blood. So if you're at risk of a heart attack, here is another reason. So we've got all of these nutrients here on top of that. So, by the way, and more, this is just a summary. And so as a result, peanut butter consumption, not peanuts, just peanut butter specifically, has been shown in the scientific studies to reduce the risk of cardiovascular disease, certain cancers, improve mental health and well-being. And I'll show you that. Peanuts are a nutrient-dense food and absolutely great for kids and for everyone. And there are a couple of common misconceptions around it and that kind of turns people off peanuts. And the first of those is one called aflatoxin. Aflatoxin is really, really toxic, the most toxic substance that we know. It's produced by a fungi called aspergillus. When the conditions are right and it's moist and there's extra water around, the aspergillus produces aflatoxin, and aflatoxin leads to an increase in liver cancer. There is no doubt about that. The established studies are very, very clear on it. And we find aflatoxin in grains, in very, a vast array of our foods and so on. So in grains and dairy and meat, and we used to find it in peanut butter. Now, fortunately, because of agricultural practices and the measuring and the monitoring, and we've been able to eliminate aflatoxin. But on top of that, what they've also done is that there are these anti-cancer, in fact, anti-aflatoxin nutrients in peanut butter. And these are resveratrol and quercetin. Both of these are found to actually reverse the production of aflatoxin, if it's being produced there, and, you ready, in the body, in our own body, it ameliorates the effect of the aflatoxin, which is probably why the latest studies from the US just a couple of years ago, and I'll put a link down below on that one, show that there's a decrease in liver cancer as a result of having peanut butter. Now, why would that be? Well, stay tuned, because I'm going to show you some of the other studies on the benefits of peanut butter in terms of cancer, cardiovascular disease, diabetes, a whole raft of things. So we know that we can literally ignore this one. Then we've got another one called peanut allergies. And peanut allergies are a serious condition, but they're not caused by peanuts per se. In 2003 and 2004, I wrote a couple of scientific papers called a peanut hypothesis. And we explained that the allergies weren't caused by the peanuts, but by a gut dysbiosis, by a microbiome that was out of balance. And as a result, it was susceptible, the immune system is linked to the gut, it was susceptible to develop allergies to anything it was exposed to. And so it was a gut dysbiosis. And we were able to highlight that, by the way, in the countries back in 30, 40 years ago who had the highest peanut consumption, actually had the lowest rates of peanut allergy. And then when they transitioned through to Western diets, peanut allergies went up as the consumption of peanuts went down. So what is it? It's a gut dysbiosis. Nowadays, the studies actually show that the early introduction of peanuts into an infant's diet is linked with reducing exposure. So there's really good science all around that. So that's a second misconception. And the third one comes around pesticides. And that is that, well, it gets all these pesticides put on it, no more than the other crops out there, unfortunately. And I'm not a fan of pesticides. I'm not a fan of this one called glyphosate, Roundup, that's put on too many crops. Now, fortunately, this isn't the heaviest sprayed crop, and it doesn't have the worst results in terms of pesticides. But if you are worried about it, you need to move towards organic peanut butter. It's one of these things in the 21st century I'm campaigning against, but almost impossible to avoid. Now, the final misconception, or the final concern that drives people away from peanuts and peanut butter, you ready, is something called arachibutyrophobia. Yes, it is the fear, the phobia of getting peanut butter stuck in the upper palate of your mouth. That's true, arachibutyrophobia. I'll leave you with that one. So with all those misconceptions out of the way, the critical thing is, what are the real benefits of peanut butter? Here am I telling you that it's good for you. I've shown you all the nutrients in there, and the research is very clear. And these are all the studies that I found. I found, in fact, a couple of dozen studies specifically on peanut butter. But the first and most important one was that it highlighted, because it's been made into peanut butter, not peanuts, but the peanuts have been crushed or ground up and made into peanut butter. It increased the bioavailability of the nutrients in the peanut butter, but also it increases the bioavailability of other things it's eaten with. And in this experiment up here, they consumed it with kale. Now, kale is this dark green, pretty for kids, you know, they don't really like the taste of it. And it increased the beta-carotene content conversion of vitamin A and increased the absorption of vitamin A in our bodies. So it was a win-win situation. Now, I love the idea of mixing it with peanut butter with things, because it can really help kids get over those phobias and fears that they have with eating certain vegetables. And I'll show you a little recipe that right at the end, a little picture of it, where my granddaughter loves mixing peanut butter with berries. And it's a great combination because they really do complement each other in terms of the nutrient density. Fantastic. And then you've got the studies that show the health benefits of it. And peanut butter, remember, these are just specifically studies on peanut butter, has been shown that it decreases, so increased consumption of peanut butter leads to a decrease in the risk of diabetes. Consuming peanut butter with the food, another study demonstrated that it lowered the glycemic influence of that food. So consuming it with white bread or a sugary drink, which instantly raises the blood sugar level, peanut butter lowered it by 30%. It's a great food to actually add on and mix on, although my preference is always get rid of the white breads and get rid of the sugars anyway. I'm sure you understand that from where I'm coming from. And it lowered it by 30%. Peanut butter has been shown to lower the risk of cardiovascular disease, in particular heart disease, by 5%. It's been shown in studies to improve vascular health and the lipid profiles. The lipid profiles are all those nasty fats floating around in the blood called triglycerides. Despite the fact that it's rich in fats, 50% of the monounsaturated oleic acid, the same one you get in olive oil, remember? Despite that, it lowers the nasty ones and improves the good ones in your blood. It's a win-win-win situation. It also has been shown to lower inflammation, which inflammation is the cornerstone of all chronic illness. So lowering inflammation has a big role to play in the overall protective roles of peanut butters and, of course, peanuts, of course. And in one study, they were able to demonstrate that consumption of peanut butter in teenagehood and in childhood and teenagerhood lowered the risk of breast disease by 39% at the age of 30. Wow, that's pretty good, isn't it? That's huge. So breast disease being things like tumour or cancer and so on, and it lowered the risk of these by 39% by consuming it in their childhood. So they followed them up later on and checked them, and at 30 years of age, they had a dramatic lowering risk. That's probably worthwhile, ladies, considering. And then another study showed that it decreased the risk of pancreatic cancer by 47%. Now that 47% is huge, absolutely huge. And this would overwhelmingly say, hey, increase your consumption of peanut butter. Now, the pancreas is a little organ just beside the stomach or just near the stomach that releases enzymes into the small intestine. It releases hormones around the body and also is involved in your adrenaline response and a whole raft of little things that go on. So very, very important. And pancreatic cancer is one of the deadliest cancers as well. So knowing that it reduces it by such a high percentage. Another study showed that it reduced the risk of esophageal, your esophagus here, and gastric cancers, so a stomach, small and large intestine cancers and so on, lowered the risk. And that's understandable given its nutrient dense and the fact that it has a really positive role to play in the gut health. And the gut health looks after your gut, obviously. And then another study specifically on peanut butter, all these are specifically on peanut butter, showed that it improved memory and decreased stress over a couple of week period in the experiment in young adults. So peanut butter provides a lot of the nutrients for the body to be able to function properly, the brain to be able to function properly, and therefore, in theory, reduces stress and improves memory. Now, then I looked at all the studies on peanuts, and that's why I've got peanut butter up here versus peanuts. And there's many studies on peanuts. Now, in some cases, they're combining peanut butter with peanuts and so on. It's hard to tell in the actual experiments. But the studies, first of all, show that peanuts contribute to weight loss and weight management. Despite the fact that they're energy dense, there are a couple of factors in there. One, you feel fuller faster. Two, it sends messages that you don't need to eat and want to eat anymore. When you eat that, then you tend not to eat as many snacks. And when they followed them up on an experiment where they gave them the equivalent amount of chips, crisps, with comparing them to peanuts, they found that the people who consumed the peanuts consumed fewer snacks and felt fuller faster than the people eating the crisps. So peanuts were a great little snack to have because of the overall benefits in not wanting to snack and eat those extra foods and extra junk foods as well. Studies have actually shown that it decreases the risk of fatty liver, and fatty liver affects between 25 and 30% of the population, a serious health risk out there, and it decreases it. Studies on hypertension show it lowers the risk of hypertension, so peanuts. Many of these studies, by the way, are replicated with other nuts as well, but in this case, peanuts. So peanuts specifically lower hypertension. And linked in with the studies I showed you earlier about peanut butter and certain cancers, they've shown to decrease cancer mortality, so that the number of people who die from cancer and have multiple cancers. So the different types of cancers, peanut consumption lowers the risk of multiple types of cancers. So a really positive inroad there. Although many of the studies also highlight their positive interaction with the gut. One study showed also that it was able to help produce butyrate. So peanut consumption produces butyrate in the gut, and the microorganisms in the gut ferment it and or work with the other gut microorganisms producing butyrate. And butyrate is this beautiful chemical that goes around the body. It's anti-inflammatory, antioxidant, and it's linked with all of these positive conditions out there. That's why I thought I'd put that one in. And the final study that really stood out for me, because earlier on I mentioned the benefit of peanut butter for young adults. Well, this study was done with an average age of 65-year-olds, and it showed that it improved memory, verbal fluency, and verbal processing, so their ability to articulate and speak better and speak clearly and not be loss of words, so to speak. So has lots of benefits in there, and also it increased the elasticity of the arteries, which overall is reducing the risk of, again, heart attacks and strokes. So all of these benefits are coming from peanut butter and peanuts. Now, my preference obviously is to increase the availability of peanuts to kids, but the next question then is which ones? You know, what peanut butter, what product? And while I don't specifically talk about a brand, always look for a locally produced one, produced in your country. Make sure it's got 99.6, 99.5% peanuts, and it doesn't have extra additives. The only additive it has in there is a little bit of salt. It hasn't got sugar in it. It hasn't got high fructose corn syrup in there. It hasn't got hydrolyzed oils in there. It hasn't got any preservatives in there, because they all disturb the balance of the peanuts and the peanut butter in the gut, and they also contribute to adverse health effects. So you don't want those. Make sure you get them as pure as possible. Now, if you want to avoid the pesticides that we've talked about, then one of the things you can do is obviously buy organic ones as well. And my preference is, as I said, you go for the local produced peanut butter. And my final message here is peanuts are a great food. They're absolutely fantastic for the kids and make up a major part of their nutritional program. And it can be added as much as possible, and be creative with it. And have a quick look at the little recipe that my granddaughter does with the peanut butters and berries right at the end of this. Undercover, undercover, undercover.